Welcome back to another edition of Meet the Coach with Jason Slowey, who is the co-defensive coordinator at Western Oregon University. Jason, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. We've been talking for like 20 minutes before this. But
Yeah.
So tell me about how you started. I know you played at Western Oregon. Tell me about your journey from player at Western Oregon to become now a coach and everything in between.
Yeah, so like you said, I came to Western Oregon as a student athlete. Actually on the football and track teams here. Was able to do that for 4 years, and then I was fortunate enough to get drafted in 2012 by the 49ers in the 6th round. And so that kind of started my quick journey through pro football. Spent a little bit of time with them, and then I was with the Raiders in 2013 and got my quick cup of coffee, and then decided I wanted to get into the coaching game, honestly. So, didn't really know where to start. Just reached out directly to my head coach, Coach Ferguson, who's still here with us, who's always been, a great role model for me. He welcomed me with open arms, found a spot for me right away. And then I just kind of got my feet wet, and there we went. I mean, I started offensively. Obviously, I played offensive line. So I was an assistant offensive line coach for a year, kind of just helped with the tackles, just kind of helped do some drills, demonstrate some stuff like that.
Was it your same coach that coached you? Was he still there?
Coach Manning, he's our offensive line coach now still, but he had been on staff as our tight ends coach and D-line coach, when I played. So I've known him, for 10 plus years now. And so great person to start with. He's also our recruiting coordinator. He's been doing this stuff a long time. So just kind of some of the, the professional side of how to, transition into coaching. I mean, there's no better person to learn from than him in that situation.
Sure, that's cool.
That was a great place to start. Then I was fortunate enough to work with the tight ends for 2 years. And we still had a little bit more of like an inline wide position in our offense. And that was awesome. Got to coach some really good guys. That was really good situation again. And then we kind of changed our offense a little bit, and there was some staff transition where there was an opening on the defensive side, and Coach Ferguson asked me if I'd be interested in, working with the linebackers. Honestly, something I never would have considered prior to that at all. Hadn't really played much defense, didn't know much about it other than trying to block those guys. And he thought it'd be a good opportunity for me. So I just kind of listened to him and hopped right in. And that was 4 years ago now. So it was a perfect time to get over to the defensive side. We were transitioning from a 4-3 to a 3-4. So there was kind of a learning curve on the player side as well. So it was kind of a good time for me to hop in. And I have my background is in education with my master's degree and my undergrad degree. So I was able to kind of utilize a lot of the techniques and stuff that I've learned, in the ed world, and bring that into football, and just, try to teach as much as I can, get organized and learn as much as I can. And, it's been a really positive experience ever since. So I guess that's kind of the abbreviated story.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting how many coaches that I've talked to. I talked to a guy who's like 50 the other day, and he was a defensive back coach, a defensive back player. Now he's a defensive back coach too. But his first gig was coaching wide receivers, and he was like, I had no plans to ever coach on the offensive side of the ball. Was offered this gig, and I was like, I gotta take it. Let's take it. And he now says how much he learned and how beneficial it was just to step on the other side and know stuff. And same thing, Taylor Housewright, who's been on here before, he was an offensive guy. He's a quarterback, and now he's back on offense again, but did a little bit of defensive back coaching. And I think he was an analyst at one point doing that. And he says how beneficial it was just to have that little aspect of knowing how the defense thinks, and then moving back to offense and like, oh, this is how they're going to think. Now we can adjust and shift from there.
And it's like when I got in that situation, I would have never, having not played linebacker, like so much of where we begin starts with the offensive lineman. You know what I mean? So like just being able to see the game through the offensive lineman's perspective, I think kind of gave me, like you said, a shortcut to a lot of the other stuff. Like wasn't much that we needed to teach about reads, things of that nature. So I think it's awesome. And it's funny because, now like to think about coaching, offensive line or something. I mean, that thing seems foreign now, like I can't even, it just seems so natural to be on the defensive side.
Sure. Who do you think's the coach that you've learned the most from?
I mean, I would have to say, obviously, our head coach. I mean, just since, I mean, this is the place I've spent all my time. But I mean, just how open he's been for me. I can always go in there and ask questions. I mean, he's been at our school coaching since 1991. You know what I mean? So he's seen quite a few things. He's got a lot of different perspectives on stuff. And I mean, I think he's really good with people also. So, I mean, there's just a wealth of knowledge that I've gained from him, and I just continue to try to soak up as much as I can. But I mean, without a doubt, it's our head coach, Coach Ferguson.
Sure. As far as your coaching philosophy or what you want to be known as a coach, I know you've never been a head coach yet, but thinking long term, what do you think your style, your brand, your philosophy type for you as a coach is?
Tough. You know, we talked about, you know, for me, as a coach, I just try to be myself and try to be authentic all the time. I think that players appreciate that. You know I appreciated that of my coaches I had when I was a player. And I think now being a coach, I think about coaches I had and I try to, you know, pull out characteristics I remember of things that I thought were positive. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think we're just trying to use, you know, football and this experience to try to, you know, develop young men that are going to be successful and just make everyone better than them when they first showed up here. I think something that we talk about a lot, like in our position group and our defense and just our football team is, you know, it's an old Bo Schembechler saying, but you're either getting better or getting worse. You never stay the same. And I truly believe that. And we kind of use that as like our guiding principle for, you know, decision making or, you know, our planning out our week and stuff like that. And I think just trying to instill habits or characteristics in these guys that are going to allow them to be successful when they leave. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what the ultimate goal is, I think. So
Sure. That's good stuff. What would you say to a young Jason Slowey? What advice would you have for him?
I don't know if we have enough time on this segment for that. I mean, it's really crazy to think about how much I've learned just from this job about how to approach life and everything. I think one thing I would tell a lot of young coaches is, especially people who also, you know, played football, is we're so naturally competitive. Like it's in our DNA, and especially when we're first getting into the profession, like you really want to find a way to establish yourself or to, you know, maybe be rewarded or whatever. And I think the one thing I would tell people is to just listen more. And it might sound obvious or simple, but that's one thing that I still work on constantly, and something that I've been mindfully trying to get better at, because I mean, we can miss so much, you know, just trying to kind of establish ourselves and, you know, show that I'm a good coach and a hard worker when, you know, people already know that because you're here. And you should just take advantage of the resources around you and try to absorb as much as you can. You know, that's something I would definitely tell myself if I could go back and tell myself something a couple years ago.
Sure, that's good stuff. All right, last one. If you could work with one coach you've never worked with before, who would it be and why?
That's tough. You know, we were joking about that. I was asking some of the guys in the office, I'm like, do I just throw out Bill Belichick's name and be that guy, you know? But on a serious note, like, you know, outside of like a big name coach, I mean, a big name guy would definitely be like a Dave Aranda type person, just someone who's so cerebral and can play multiple defense and is an excellent instructor and just is, you know, the definition of a great college defensive coach, in my opinion. But, you know, like one of my friends, like, you know, Evan Mazzocchi up at Portland State, you know, hopefully one of these days, you know, Evan will get the nod somewhere to be a head coach, or, you know, maybe Trey or Tim or just any of the guys that I've kind of come into contact in, you know, my time. I would love to continue to work with some of these guys, you know, so we started out together on some of these lower levels, and when someone gets a head coaching job, you know, I'd love to continue that relationship, you know.
Take you with them.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Jason, we appreciate it. Thank you.